Good to be here. I'm Sarah Young. This is Jess. I will let her introduce herself in a sec. But today we're talking about Tales from the Tech Trenches. This is version 2.0. As Shana said before, Jess did do a version of this talk, the original version of this talk, like 3 years ago now, which is just insane because I was there too. And
wow. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I know. So yeah. Let's crack on. I was trying to see if my stream deck would work there, but it wouldn't. So quick agenda. Essentially, we're just gonna talk about ourselves for a sec. We'll do a level set. We'll set some background. We're going to talk about the story so far. Is it getting better? And then what else do we think we can do? So we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it nice and succinct. Obviously, this is a thing we could go on about for a long time. So
we actually had this discussion. I'm pretty sure that we have spent more time talking about this behind the scenes building this talk than we have actually going to be giving this talk. So feel free to come and have a chat to us. You'll notice that on most of the slides, you'll find our handles of where you can find us. I was going to say on Twitter, if Twitter doesn't burn down in the next half an hour or so, you can come and have a chat to us there.
Yeah. For however long Twitter is still there. We are going to have a few interactive slides. So you can actually go ahead and start answering the questions now if you want. There's only 3. But if you want to play along, feel free. You can use that QR. Yeah, please do. It can be anonymous as well. You don't have to say who you are. We're not interested in that. We just like to we love a bit of audience participation. I'm not sure if anyone on here has used PolEV. It's super fun. So feel free to log on your phone or your machine or whatever and join along with us. And then Jess.
Hi, I'm Jess. So this is my Who Am I? You'll notice you can see my cute QR code. I've got it in the background. You can see it sort of right here, if I can point to it properly. So this is a Lego QR code that will take you off to my link tree that lets you find me everywhere. I am a, whatever they're calling me this week, senior cloud solution architect engineering in cybersecurity. I've been at Microsoft now for about 3.5 years. That's by the by. I've been in the industry for about 20 years or so now. So now I feel really old. I'm a recovering sysadmin. I will always be a sysadmin at heart. I help co-run the Women IT Pros calls, which, good reminder, that's coming up this Thursday. So that's the APAC version. I am the mum to a small human, as you can see, an old fluff who escapes whenever required, some chickens and some bees. I collect a lot of Lego. I am a video game addict. You are currently taking up World of Warcraft and Terraria time for me to present this, so you should feel very honored. But I am a huge supporter and a huge advocate of women in tech and getting more women and getting more girls into tech.
Thanks, Jess. So I'm Sarah Young. I'm a senior cloud security advocate. I am also working at Microsoft. I've been in security now for the past 10 odd years. I've been in tech for God knows how long. I love talking about how we can secure the things. I know there'll be plenty of people watching the stream who I know. So hello. I've written some Microsoft press books if you're studying Microsoft exams. I co-host the Azure Security Podcast. So again, specifically if you're using Azure, go and listen. It's basically 4 of us nerds. It's not sort of officially Microsoft produced, like we've just been doing it ourselves for 2 years, but it's Microsoft people who know good stuff. I am definitely a crazy dog woman. As you can see, I have a dog here. I have 2 dogs over here. I have 3 dogs. That's something I've accumulated since COVID because I finally got to stop traveling and got to have pets. And yeah,
it seems like every time we blink, you get a new dog.
It's true, but now 3 is my limit. No more. 3 is my limit. Okay. Also, for those of you who may have been following this adventure, I am currently now back in Australia. I am not in America. I'm not in New Zealand. I'm back in Australia. This should be a permanent thing. That's a long story that we won't go into now. But yeah, if you're wondering what country I'm in, it is in fact Australia. So, hooray! I am back.
Sarah, could we flick back very briefly to the PolEV link, pretty please?
We can. There you go. So polev.com/tech trenches. And that QR code should work as well if you want to. I will leave it up for a second. So people, it will come up again, by the way, if anyone's panicking and you missed this now. When we do the interactive slides, it is in the top. as well to remind you the URL, but here it is. I'm going to give
Thank
everyone
you.
like another couple of seconds and it's gone. So as I said, it will come back. So don't worry. So before we go any further though, just a quick level set. So this is it can be a difficult topic to discuss, right? So we want to stress here before we go any further, we're talking about our experiences and some experiences that were shared with us. We're not looking to shame people or complain. Like, we want to tell this quite factually, because it is a thing that happens, and kind of more proactively talk about what we can do about it, because there's always a lot of talk about discrimination and bad experiences, and all of us know that happens, but what we want to do is highlight it, but again then sort of proactively do something. Jess, I'll stop and let Jess add in there.
I think the big thing for me, and it was something that I said when I gave this talk the first time, is that we can only speak on behalf of us and the experiences that we've had and the experiences that have been shared with us. We know that this is something that happens, but at the same time, we also know that the experiences that we're sharing as part of this are only a subset of what people have felt comfortable sharing with us, of the people who have seen us asking for their content. So again, it could be very siloed in what we're seeing, in terms of there are definitely going to be experiences that we haven't heard. Something that Sarah and I are both very well aware of. We are both cis, het, white women. So that does mean that, yes, we have faced some discrimination in our careers, but we know that there are other subsets and other minorities and intersectionalities that have definitely faced more than we have. Thinking of our people of color, our lovely folk in the LGBTQIA community, particularly at the moment, as we've seen with a lot of the, I want to say, nastiness around trans folk. We know that there are experiences out there that we haven't personally experienced and that haven't been shared with us, but that we are aware of. So this talk is very much aimed at what we have experienced, what people have told us. And again, as Sarah said, we're not trying to complain. We're just trying to go, this is what's happening. How do we fix it? That's what we want to really focus on. What is it we can do to make this better?
Yeah. And so again, please don't feel, if you feel, we're not trying to marginalize any other groups. We only have the anecdotes that we know personally or that have been shared with us. So we are aware that, we can't cover everything, and we haven't covered everyone's experiences, but we're trying our best with what we've got. It's obviously, we have half an hour. We could be here for a long time if we wanted to try and cover everyone. So you want to do a whole comfy con on it? No, maybe not. Maybe next time. So I'm going to let Jess do this bit because this is hers. But
once upon a time, I put out a tweet because back in 2018, I was like, some stuff had happened, and I wanted to know whether other women had experienced it, and particularly listening to some men going, this doesn't happen. I've never seen it. None of the women in my circle have told me about it. Calling a spade, that's bullshit. So I wanted to get those experiences from women who I know had experienced it and raise their voices. And so I put out a tweet, and I gave a talk about it in 2019. I gave that at CrikeyCon. I also gave it at Ignite in Australia. I went and took it over to the US and gave it at another conference over in Florida. It was very successful in amplifying the voices of a lot of women who hadn't had their voices heard. And so as part of that, we've decided that we wanted to hear whether those experiences had changed. So we put out another tweet about 3 weeks ago going, we're looking at giving this talk again. And this time I get to do it with a co-host, so I don't have to do all the speaking. Yay! Yeah. And so we wanted to hear stories from other folk in tech about what they had experienced and whether it was getting better. Okay? So that's how all of this came about.
Yeah, and this is where we are now. So moving on to the next bit of the story for our little introduction.
And for those of you who have been at my talk, you may know what is next to come.
Yeah. So this is the bit of the interactive bit. This should update as we go. Hopefully, I'll leave it a couple of seconds. As I said, this is if you don't feel obliged to join in, but you can. It will. Oh, it's solid 50%. But it does update as you go. Oh no. Ooh. So we'll leave it going as we talk. I'm intrigued to see.
Look, you're watching it go.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I'm interested to see, based on the audience that we're seeing, as to whether people have felt this way.
Yeah. I mean, I know I have. So
I certainly have.
I certainly have in my career.
We should be voting.
Here goes the yeses.
There we go.
Yeah. Jess, this is Jess's first time using PolyV. I assured her it was good fun.
It is a
Jess,
lot of fun. You're looking at me like, oh, look at those numbers.
I know.
50-50 I was quite happy with. That's not so great.
50-50. I was surprised at 50-50, but I'd say, yes and no. I'm glad though that there actually are some people who have never felt like that. That's really cool.
That's awesome. That's why I was really happy. I'm like 50% of the folks watching. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But now so, I mean, as we can see, thank you, Shanna, or whoever it was who put the banner across the bottom. That's awesome.
Thank you
very much. So you can see, we can see there that, we'll move on because we'll run out of time. But as you can see, there's quite a few people there. Folks are watching more. So 3/4 have, 1/4 haven't. So, I mean, obviously this isn't broken down by any sort of other things. This is just who's watching ComfyCon right now. But yeah, we can see it's definitely something that's happened to people.
Yeah. And based on the stories we've got, that's not surprising.
Yeah. So, well, Jess, if you did see Jess's original talk, and if you didn't, I encourage you to go watch it because it is still on YouTube. You can see that here we've just got one page of anecdotes, some of the ones that were shared with us. I mean, Jess, you got any favorites there that you want to?
My favorite one is one that was shared with me, which was having a junior colleague try to get me to have sex with them in their car in the office car park on the day we met. This is not acceptable. Like, I don't understand. Like, I have to laugh because if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry. These are so pervasive stories about these sexual approaches and sexual harassment of women in the workplace. Like, how are we still seeing this in 2022?
I think the one that sort of again for me, one of the ones that stands out, well, they all stand out because we put them on this slide, but 3 weeks into starting a new company, colleague told me that I was just a diversity hire. We wanted to hire a guy, but HR told us we had to hire a woman and you were the best one.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of the women who are watching this have had someone tell them that the only reason they have their job is because they were a diversity hire. I know I've had that happen for jobs that I've been hired for talking slots that I've been given at conferences, and it sticks with you. It hurts.
Yeah. It's I've certainly heard there's only one story up on there, but I've certainly heard many anecdotal things from people about people saying that they're just a diversity hire, or maybe not quite saying it to their face, but it's strongly insinuated that they're just a diversity hire, which is,
or worse, it's said behind their back to other people that they are working with. I've experienced that one, and that one, it hurts. It really does hurt.
Yeah. I mean, as you can see here, we have things about maternity leave, which you'd think people would be, being that, it's quite enshrined in litigation, that people would be more sensible about. Someone being given a coffee order. I know I've been told in my early days in support, I was there was a gentleman who used to ring up the company I did support for, and every time he got me, he'd say, I don't want to speak to reception, I want to speak to engineering, despite the fact I was engineering.
Yep. Being seen as the receptionist or the person there to take notes. Probably the one down the very bottom, talking about only 2 women in the office and walking up to my desk while I was on the phone and gave me his coffee order. I know a lot of women that I've worked with in the past have felt that a lot of the women's work, as it's so seen, is put on them despite them being in technical teams. Things like organizing going away presents, organizing birthday morning teas and social outings, despite it not being our jobs. If you're a manager, that's your job. That you go and do it. Don't put that on the women in your team.
Or circulate it around the team. If it's something that the team have to do, like make everyone do it at some point.
Absolutely.
Not just point at the ladies. So as you can see, like I said, we've only got 1 page this time, but there's some pretty rubbish things happening there, and these are all fresh anecdotes that have happened in the sort of fairly recently. So not great. Not fantastic. So is it getting better? And before we tell you what we think, though, we'd like to hear what you think. Because we don't want to influence you, so we're doing it this way round. This is deliberate. So again, I know we're doing a very simple yes/no here, but we'd be keen to hear just in your personal experience. Again, we're not breaking this down by any sort of any kind of other thing like gender, ethnicity, whatever. But yeah, do you think the security industry is becoming more inclusive? And then we'll tell you what we think, but we didn't want to influence you, so we thought we'd ask first. As you can see, I love Poly V. It's always really interesting to see what people think. And
I'm actually reading Discord right now. I was asked who I came with at a technical conference, laughed at when I said I was technical, asked prove your knowledge challenge questions, then hit on and asked for an invite to a women's party, all by the same guy in one interaction at my first InfoSec conference.
Wow. That's wow. In one go, one interaction from one person. Wow.
That is awful.
I would like to think maybe that wasn't too recent, but I mean, I've been asked out at a conference. That's happened to me. I've been asked
a hotel room at a conference.
Yeah. Oh, do we think it's becoming more inclusive? Oh, this is interesting. Sort of, they're 50-50-ish.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, we'll give it just another few seconds because although I could sit and watch Poly V for ages because it's quite fun, we'll keep moving along for time. But I'd say that's interesting. I'd say only slightly more yes than no's there. It's again, it would be interesting. As I said, we have done this very anonymously on purpose, so people can sort of feel that they can speak freely. But I would be intrigued to see a breakdown of where people are from and what they do. So, what do we think? Well, I think yes. I think it's getting better. Is it getting better quick enough?
No. Unless we had this discussion when we were putting this talk together.
Yes.
It is getting better, but it's not getting better quick enough. We're not doing enough quick enough to get this to change.
It's not, and of course it is a complex problem. Let's not beat about the bush. It's not something that can be solved overnight. This isn't like a technical change where we go boop boop boop, it's done. There are massive societal, cultural things that lead up to this, which is why it's so difficult to change. And I think we're going in the right direction. There are certainly so many organizations out there, but we're not there. And to this second point, I think for those of us who work in big corporates, and again, I'm not picking any particular big corporate, just big corporations. Now, most of them have a focus on D&I, and that's great, right? Because it used to be that people were just like, well, we might do it. It's nice. Whereas now, a lot of big organizations are I don't want to say forcing, because that makes it sound like people don't want to do it, but they are sort of putting it up front and center that, you must look at D&I and do things about D&I, which is great. But I think there are aspects of that. Again, I'm not pointing at anyone, where it's almost lip service to D&I. A bit like, and this was the example I was talking about with Jess when we were planning this talk, is like greenwashing. So, it's now very trendy with products to say, oh, we're environmentally friendly, we care about the environment, blah, blah, blah. But then when actually there's some research done behind the scenes, quite a few of those products actually aren't very environmentally friendly, but it's now the trendy thing to say. And I do think there's a danger with our D&I initiatives in tech and security, that there is an element of that. People are just saying it because you need to say it rather than doing it. So
It's just
that's
saying the words because you need to say the words, and
yeah.
actions speak louder than words. And I think that's the most important part. And I think people need to be looking at what actions a lot of these organizations and companies are actually doing to improve diversity and inclusion, rather than just looking at the words. So that's the big one, I think, for us.
Yeah, because if it's you're doing like a one-off event, that's great. I mean, it's better than doing nothing, but where's your like long-term commitment to trying to do something regularly? If it's like coaching, that's great. But are you doing it regularly? Is it doing coaching and mentoring? Is it being done fairly regularly? Or are you just going in like saying, hi, like, let's talk to you about tech. You're marginalized, and then disappearing forever. Like that sort of stuff is kind of like almost like box ticking. Oh, we did some D&I, but it's actually not properly committing to it. And so definitely, if you're whatever organization you work for, and if you're working on D&I things, definitely think about, is this lip service to tick a box to say we did it, or are we actually trying to make a sustainable long-term like commitment to changing things?
And the other thing that we wanted to put here as well is that it isn't just about gender. Yes, we are both women talking about women's stories because that's our experience. And a lot of the people who have contacted us with their experiences are women as well. But D&I isn't just about gender. And I think that's another aspect that a lot of organizations seem to miss. A lot of women in tech events, or women in coding. Look, I love you developers. I love you coders. I can't code to save my life. I don't care about women in coding, which is how we came up with women IT pros. Some of us can't code to save our lives, but it isn't just about women. There are other groups that we need to be thinking about. There are other marginalized and intersectionalities that we need to be looking at. We need to be looking at accessibility and diversity when it comes to disabilities. We need to be looking at race. We need to be looking at all of the LGBTQIA community as well, and making sure that everyone feels included, which is why diversity and inclusion is so important.
Yeah, I think because it's been gender in terms of just saying there's not very many women in tech. That's been a really easy one because it's generally very visible. It's something that has been sort of around for a long time. And I think there are a lot more initiatives focusing on women, but as Jess said, diversity is so many other things as well. And I think some of the other initiatives to make people feel more included are not as far along as well. So we need to make sure that we sort of bring them along, if it's something for trans people, or particular race, ethnicities, religion. Like there's always been in tech in particular a big focus on getting more women. And don't get me wrong, it's a problem, but there are other bits to it as well that it's important to not try and forget about as well, because there's still more work to do there as well. I mean, some of these communities haven't even really been recognized very much at all, just in society generally, until fairly recently. So to have them recognized in the industry as well is going to take longer, right?
Yeah, but it's something we need to do.
Yeah. Now this is not a slot. These are stats not from us. This came from a talk
we pilfered.
ASA. Yeah, this came from ASA Melbourne, which is called Australia's Cybersecurity Sector. Where are the women? Now, this is as I said, this is some research done by Dr. Leonora Rise and Dr. Maria Baymond. I'm really sorry if I said your name wrong. And as you can see, this was the calculations they did using the ANZ SCO job codes. You'll be very familiar with those if you've ever done Australian visas. Otherwise, you probably
which I
wouldn't
think Sarah might have done a couple of times.
I've done a couple of times, so I'm very aware of these codes. But this is how you sort of categorize your job. It's actually used for tax as well. So not that it's such a big deal in tax land if it's not quite right, but you can see here like the proportion of women to men, and this is in Australia. So because it was actually really difficult, we wanted to find some stats that were more Australia specific, being that this is ComfyCon, and this was the only one we could find because there's not too much research out there. But as you can see, it's still very overwhelmingly men. Which again is probably, not a surprise to you. Didn't really come as a surprise to me. But even in tech as a whole, you can see security is actually a lot worse than.
And I think that to me was the biggest surprise, that it was, I knew that tech, it was low, but to see security at the lowest was probably like, that to me is the saddest part, that it's showing us that we need more women, not just in tech, but we desperately need to get more women into security.
Yeah, so there's still a long way to go, as we know. So the question is then, how do we move things? How do we make things better? I'm going to let Jess start here. What do you think, Jess?
I got a list. I came with a list. I came prepared. So,
yeah.
Starting young to me is probably the biggest part, and you only need to look at the fact that I think they did a study, and I need to find the info for it so that I can paste it into Discord for you all, but there is a noticeable shift from when children go from 5 to 6 that they start gendering workplaces. They go from seeing doctors and nurses and firemen and police people as people to seeing them split up. Firemen, policemen, doctors are men. And the same thing happens with tech as they are younger. They see tech being very boy focused. It's not aimed at girls, and we are shifting it, but it's something that we need to do better at. So parents need to be involved in getting their kids interested in tech at a young age and making them realize it doesn't know any barriers. And when we're talking about diversity in general, tech is what can bring people together, no matter what your disability is, no matter what race you are, provided we can get tech to you. And I realize that there is a privilege involved in that, but provided you can get access to tech, it is for everyone. And getting parents to teach their kids that is really, really important. I say that as the parent of a small person who I am trying to encourage towards a healthy relationship with technology.
Yeah, and I think for me, well, we know the research, at least for women, that often men will apply for a job when they like only 50% qualified, whereas women tend to be won't apply for something until they're like, I don't know, like, 90, 95. I mean, the amazing meme that I always remember about this is you need to apply for a job with the confidence that Donald Trump applied for the presidency. Because if you think about it, this was a meme that was going around Twitter, and I have to try and find it before Twitter disappears. But, Trump was he had no political career. He was completely unqualified, apart from the fact he had money. And he became the president, and he just looks at that job and he's like, yeah, I can do that. Now, right. I'm not saying, yeah. And I do think there's two bits to this. I think we should be more confident as ladies. You should be more confident in just applying for jobs. Bear in mind that managers usually just put a dump of like everything they think they want. Having said
that is that particular point there.
Yeah. But as someone who writes, if you write job descriptions, if you have like any kind of say in that, then please think about how you write them. Like, I realize that writing job descriptions is really boring, and often people just copy paste the last time they hired for a role. But if you want to try and if you just got like a load of cis het white men applying for your job last time and you want to change that, then think about the way you're writing the hiring, you're writing a job description. You should say things like, hey, if you don't have all of this, but you think you're right, come and apply and tell us why you should. Things like that. Just try and make it more, and don't just put "we are inclusive" at the bottom, because everyone writes that at the bottom. It doesn't.
Yeah, don't do that.
It needs to be more than that. There's all kind of things here.
With the reviewing of the hiring practices, so particularly around those job descriptions, if you are concerned that the people that you are getting coming in, and I've actually seen this work really, really well in a couple of communities that I'm in, if you're putting out a job and all you're getting back are the same people and you're like, what am I missing? Why am I not getting the right people? Get other people to look at it. Look at the people in your circles. If you're trying to get women to take a look at that job description and tell you why they wouldn't apply for that job, because it can really help you when you are writing those job descriptions. And I've helped a number of friends, colleagues, and managers rewrite job descriptions to be more inclusive and get more people applying.
Yeah, and I think I'll hurry up a little bit here because I think we're over our time, Jess. We were always going to go over our time.
We always were.
Yeah, I know we always were. But, call out bad behavior. If you see it often now, I think in my experience and what I've seen and anecdotally what I've been told is often bad behavior isn't super overt. Like, most people know it's not acceptable to be like, she can't do that, she's a woman, literally to her face, but to your face. But if you see bad behavior, or if you see someone not being inclusive, or someone bad mouthing D&I saying it's fluff, because that does still happen, call people out. Or call people out, because it's not cool. And
the big one for women, for me, the one that I really like giving shout out to, this one is that visibility. You can't be what you can't see. So for women in the community, standing up and letting others see you, and getting, it sounds terrible, but just fake it till you make it by giving conference talks, coming in and presenting something at ConfiCon. Honestly, the more people can see that there are women in this industry, the more likely they are to want to come and join this industry, because they see people who look like them, because you can't be it if you can't see it.
It's true. I agree with that very much so. Yeah, as I said, we've been talking about our experiences and the experience just shared with us. I know it's skewed towards women, and we know there are definitely other things out there. But last but not least, because we couldn't finish without a bit of Polly V. Look, thank you for those of you who have already filled this in. We'll go with what's here, just because I know we're going over time. But we wanted to say, what do you think needs to change? So I can see there, promoting schoolgirls. Like, sometimes these word maps are great and sometimes they're very difficult.
I think it's interesting because you can see that there are some things that people are trying to get rid of. So things like gatekeeping and egos. Yeah. I think that's really awesome to see that.
I like boys' egos down the bottom there. And the bigger words are the ones that have more people have written. So you can see race, tech, leadership, cliques. These are obviously, I'm going to assume these are things we want to get rid of. But you're right. If anyone's interested, we actually can download the responses. It doesn't say who they are. As I said, it is anonymous, but we'll actually get them and maybe we'll be able to share them somewhere. But thank you for, giving your standards. Yes. As you can see,
I think that's the big thing here. And one of the reasons why we wanted to give this talk and include Polly V, because we can't fix it. Like, we're only two people. That's it. We can't fix it. So we need other people to help in fixing this. So one of the reasons for giving this talk is to say, hey, this is what's wrong. B, how do we go about fixing it? And C, what do you think we need to do to fix it? And now it's the chance and pretty much the go-to. Go and do it.
Yeah.
Please help us make this more inclusive. Please make our industry better.
Yeah, pretty much. Couldn't say it better myself, Jess, because it's not something that one person or one group can fix. It really isn't. And it's going to be an ongoing thing. It's like security generally. We say you can't just go boom, 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 now my thing is secure forever. It's an iterative, ongoing process. And it's exactly the same for diversity. So, same thing. Here's the slide. Let's see. Here are some slides that you can take photo of, or well, I'm sure we can put the slides somewhere later. But in Australia, we have AWSN, the Australian Women in Security Network, who I'm sure most people here are aware of. There's also WeCIS, which is Women in Cybersecurity. They're a global organization. I know they do have a chapter in Australia now. Black Girls Hack is an organization I came across when I was in the US. The Diana Initiative, that's a conference that happens at Hacker Summer Camp, but they do things throughout the year. They are an organization that supports any kind of minority in tech. It used to be more focused purely on women, but they've expanded, again, reflecting how D&I has changed. And then we also have an LGBTQI Discord for cybersecurity people. Pilar? I want to say Pilar because it's only one L, but anyway, that's obviously we don't want to look at Twitter anymore at the moment. So yeah, that's our that is our talk. We definitely don't have time for questions online because we are over time, but
we will be lurking.
Yeah, we'll be lurking. Please chat to us on Discord or Twitter or whatever whilst Twitter's still up. And thank you ever so much for, thanks ComfyCon for having us. And thanks everyone for participating and for your attention.